Here's a good shortcut for figuring out what's true amongst all the misinformation that comes our way. Read the work of independent investigative journalists who aren't paid for by advertisers, governments, or corporations that are trying to spin a self-serving narrative. Nicholas Wade is one such journalist, one of the most reputable science journalists in the world. On May 5, 2021, he published an article in the scientific journal Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists titled, "The Origin of COVID, Did People or Nature Open Pandora's Box at Wuhan?" This article was heavily researched, presented verifiable evidence for its claims, and was vetted by the editorial board of a serious scientific journal. The article is causing a lot of people to ask some tough questions to the people in charge. Senator Rand Paul grilled Dr. Anthony Fauci about information that came out in the article about Fauci's role in the funding of gain-of-function experiments in a virology lab in Wuhan. Gain-of-function basically means altering viruses to make them more potent in order to do research on them to better understand how viruses work. Wade writes, "In their laboratories, they routinely created viruses more dangerous than those that exist in nature. They argued that they could do so safely, and that by getting ahead of nature, they could predict and prevent natural spillovers, the crossover of viruses from an animal host to people." One of the most important outcomes of the facts in this article becoming public knowledge is that there will be more debate over whether the risks involved in gain-of-function research are worth the rewards. I encourage you to read the article for yourself. I've posted a link to it in the notes below this video. With the outbreak of the coronavirus, called SARS-2 in the article, in Wuhan in December 2019, Chinese authorities reported that many cases had occurred in a market in Wuhan that sells wild animals for meat. It was proposed that a bat virus had jumped from bats to humans through another type of animal, such as a pangolin, in a similar way that the SARS-1 virus had passed from bats to civets to humans in 2002, and the MERS virus passed from bats to camels to humans in 2012. This came to be known as the natural emergence theory. Some people thought that the nearby Wuhan Institute of Virology might be where the viruses came from. This theory came to be known as the lab leak theory. In February 2020, to counter the lab leak hypothesis that was circulating, a group of virologists wrote in The Lancet, "We stand together to strongly condemn conspiracy theories suggesting that COVID-19 does not have a natural origin, and overwhelmingly conclude that this coronavirus originated in wildlife." It was later revealed that the letter had been drafted by Peter Daszak, president of the EcoHealth Alliance of New York, an organization that had funded coronavirus research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. If the virus had indeed escaped from the lab, neither the Chinese officials nor the US leaders who had funded the research would want this information to be made public. In his article, Wade explains, "Careers can be destroyed for stepping out of line. Any virologist who challenges the community's declared view risks having his next grant application turned down by the panel of fellow virologists that advises the government grant distribution agency." Yet over a year later, when the World Health Organization visited Wuhan in February 2021, the article continues, "The Chinese had no evidence to offer the Commission in support of the natural emergence theory." This was surprising because both the SARS-1 and MERS viruses had left copious traces in the environment. The intermediary host species of SARS-1 was identified within 4 months of the epidemic's outbreak, and the host of MERS within 9 months. Yet some 15 months after the SARS-2 pandemic began, and after a presumably intensive search, Chinese researchers had failed to find either the original bat population or the intermediate species to which SARS-2 might have jumped, or any serological evidence that any of the Chinese population, including that of Wuhan, had ever been exposed to the virus prior to December 2019. Natural emergence remained a conjecture which, however plausible to begin with, had gained not a shred of supporting evidence in over a year. We actually know what was going on in the Wuhan lab going back several years because the scientists wrote grant proposals to the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, a part of the U.S. National Institute of Health, to get funding. Wade explains, Researchers at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, led by China's leading expert on bat viruses, Shizheng Li, mounted frequent expeditions to the bat-infested caves of Yunnan in southern China and collected around 100 different bat coronaviruses. She then teamed up with Ralph S. Barrett, an eminent coronavirus researcher at the University of North Carolina. Their work focused on enhancing the ability of bat viruses to attack humans so as to, quote, examine the emergence potential, that is, the potential to infect humans, of circulating bat coronaviruses. In pursuit of this aim, in November 2015, they created a novel virus by taking the backbone of the SARS-1 virus and replacing its spike protein with one from the bat virus known as SHCO14-CoV. This manufactured virus was able to infect the cells of the human airway, at least when tested in a lab culture of such cells. On December 9, 2019, Daszak said in an interview, "And we have now found, after 6 or 7 years of doing this, over 100 new SARS-related coronaviruses, very close to SARS. Some of them get into human cells in the lab. Some of them can cause SARS diseases in humanized mice models and are untreatable with therapeutic monoclonals, and you can't vaccinate them with the vaccine. So these are a clear and present danger." Wade points out that viruses have escaped from labs in the past. The smallpox virus escaped 3 times from labs in England in the 1960s and 70s, causing 80 cases and 3 deaths. Dangerous viruses have leaked out of labs almost every year since. Coming to more recent times, the SARS-1 virus has proved a true escape artist, leaking from laboratories in Singapore, Taiwan, and no less than 4 times from the Chinese National Institute of Virology in Beijing. And more pointedly, according to a fact sheet issued by the State Department on January 15, 2021, the U.S. government had reason to believe that several researchers inside the Wuhan Institute of Virology became sick in autumn 2019, before the first identified cases of the outbreak, with symptoms consistent with both COVID-19 and common seasonal illnesses. And that's just setting the scene for the comparison between the natural emergence theory and the lab leak theory. Where it gets really specific is in examining the virus itself. Wade goes into great detail presenting evidence that the structure of the virus doesn't look like something that could have evolved through random mutation. I won't even try to summarize the evidence at the level of molecular biology, but I encourage you to read it as he explains it in a way that even a layperson can follow the line of reasoning. Wade summarizes, "It's documented that researchers at the Wuhan Institute of Virology were doing gain-of-function experiments designed to make coronaviruses infect human cells and humanized mice. This is exactly the kind of experiment from which a SARS-2-like virus could have emerged. The researchers were not vaccinated against the virus under study, and they were working in the minimal safety conditions of a biosafety level 2 laboratory. So escape of a virus would not be at all surprising. In all of China, the pandemic broke out on the doorstep of the Wuhan Institute. The virus was already well adapted to humans, as expected for a virus grown in humanized mice. It possessed an unusual enhancement, a furin cleavage site, which is not possessed by any other known SARS-related beta coronavirus. And this site included a double arginine codon, also unknown among beta coronaviruses. What more evidence could you want, aside from the presently unobtainable lab records documenting SARS-2's creation? In other words, this virus does not look like it spontaneously arose from nature. What does it matter how it all started? It matters because we clearly need more oversight into the kinds of research virologists are doing. Even if this virus did not escape from a lab, Wade makes a strong case for how it easily could have. There are enough dangers in the natural world without us creating more in the lab. It matters because we should hold our leaders more accountable for withholding information from the public. Civil society is based on trust, and trust is based on telling the truth. We need to educate ourselves, become more critical thinkers, and speak truth to power. How is it that most individuals have common sense, and yet as a collective we act so foolishly? We really need to wake up and stop allowing ourselves to take such existential risks as a species. We have built enough weapons to blow ourselves up multiple times over. We pollute our natural environment and act as if we don't depend on it for our survival. We create deadly pathogens in the lab in attempts to keep ourselves safe. When our worlds are turned upside down, one positive outcome is that we can gain a new perspective. Hopefully, we have all become a little wiser.